Yo, what is up guys, and in today's video I'm going to show you guys some different build hacks you can do in the new 1.70 snapshots, because we've had a lot of new blocks since the last snapshot video I did, and I figured I would show you guys some even more with these beautiful new blocks that we have here behind me. So yeah guys, if you do like any of these designs or find them useful, be sure to subscribe because I'll be posting a lot more building related content and stuff that you guys might find enjoyable. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. So the way that I did these build hacks was I used all of them in a build together, so you guys can either look at how useful they can be if you put them all together or if you use them in an actual build. And as you guys can see, we have a huge garden in front of this huge mansion here. So starting at the front, we have these huge hedges here with the new azalea bushes and leaves, and also with the moss blocks. It kind of adds some textures to it, makes it feel full, makes it feel lush, and like an actual hedge that's like surrounding an important place or a very huge house like we have here. And then I basically just did a gradient from the bushes to leaves, so it feels more natural and it also fits in. And also I have seen hedge designs where it's all the moss blocks, and I feel like that's a little bit too thick. This is a full block, it's not transparent. So yeah, I went with this and it feels much more natural. And then right down the middle here, we have a nice little path with the new basalt and Grimstone, and this I accidentally did the wrong way. But it can work either way, you can have it this way or up like this. But yeah, the new Grimstone and basalt looks really great together. They match perfectly almost. But soon I do believe the Grimstone texture is changing, so this might not be applicable in the future. But right now it works. Yeah, hopefully it doesn't change too much and that we still have a similar kind of texture and color. And this is kind of an old one, but in this fountain here, I did use copper for the tiles of this fountain. Of course, it's going to be watered down, so it's going to turn to the bright kind of blue, this nice blue copper color. If you have any fountains or any kind of water feature, you can use copper for the floor. And then in the yard of the mansion, I did line the grass up like you see in these nice lawns that people have, where they have them done all fancy and everything. Yeah, I made some nice lines with the moss block and the grass, because they do look very similar, obviously. And this was a given. I think everyone's gonna do something like this on their nice builds. Then I lined up some moss blocks and some grass, and then I added some patches of moss carpet to kind of add a little bit of extra texture to it so it's not all flat on the ground. And then I just dotted some regular grass in between. And then what I think is kind of the main feature of the house, for the snapshot anyways, is this giant azalea tree that I made. And it has all kinds of features on it. So first off, it is made entirely out of the azalea leaves, because I don't know, I really like these leaves. They look nice, a nice kind of green compared to the darker greens that we have with the normal leaves. And then of course I mixed the flowers in there because the tree is growing flowers, and I added the actual spore blossom, the actual flowers underneath, to get this really cool effect with the particles of quartz. I think it just adds so much to your terrain, to your kind of natural builds. We just spot these around. What you have to do though is you have to place it underneath another block beside a leaf, because you can't just place them directly underneath the leaves. I don't know why, but it doesn't work, but I think it should work in the future. But yeah, that's the only kind of tedious thing about this. And then of course I added some glowberries dropping down to add some light and just some extra detail. But these are not the only vines that you guys probably saw. Also have these vines. Now this is from the... Can I pick block it? It doesn't let me pick block it. But this is from the big Dripleaf. Now the way you have to do these is kind of tedious too, and it's not really doable in survival, because I am using barrier blocks to hold them up. So you do have to have these on a block initially. So what you do is you plant the Dripleaf, and you bone meal it, and then break the block that it's going to be attached to. Bone meal it once more, then break that, and place the block right back on top. So yeah, it's a bit of a tedious process, but it does look really cool in the end, because the vine on these Dripleafs just wrap around and looks like an actual vine. And yeah, these are vines too, but they're a bit too thick for my taste. I think these are just right. Yeah, this is probably one of my coolest build hacks that I have here. And it's also one I came up with myself. I'm not sure if anyone else has found out about it, but I feel proud of myself for coming up with this by myself. It's a really cool feature. And then below the tree that you guys probably have seen is we have these flowers on the grass. Now this is pretty much just the flowering azalea bush. I just placed it down, because you're not going to see the bottom if it's in the ground, you're just going to see the top. And it gives that effect like the flowers are falling down from the tree, like in the springtime and stuff. And then to blend in more, I added the regular bushes around, just to kind of blend it in the ground, because it is a different texture and it could be off-putting. And then what I forgot to mention is that around the house, on the top of the hedges, I did some glow lichen on the top of the bushes, because from down below you won't be able to see it. But when it's nighttime, the place really glows up. You have a nice little subtle light on top of the bushes, where usually it'll just be completely dark. And then same for on the trees, the glowberries add a nice lighting effect to it. And also, of course, if you guys want, you can add some hidden lighting under the moss blocks. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this build, and let's move on to the next one. And over here, I made a pretty fancy fantasy interior in this house. But first off, I want to show this house off for a second. This was my first fantasy house that I've done in a very long time, and it turned out pretty good. And I actually built this house on stream, so yeah, if you guys want to catch my streams in the future, I'm not sure when I'll do one, I don't have a schedule. Yeah, if you guys want to see that, you can follow me on Twitch. But yeah, enough about me, let's get on to the interior. Yeah, first off, as we go in here, you can see the particles from the spore blossoms, and I dotted those around on the interior. And I think it just adds so much to the house, so much atmosphere to the room. And even though it's not exactly normal to have flowers like on the roof or anything, it's normal for fantasy. You can do anything for fantasy. And I think it really adds the fantasy vibe to the house. And then in the corner here, we have this little bush. Yeah, instead of doing the normal too high leaf block bush or anything, we can have actual bushes in the house, which is really great. And then over here we have a little study. I just got a jam that's in the corner here, and then for light I use the glowberry bushes. And I think in a fantasy vibe and fantasy house, this will definitely fit in nicely. And it's kind of like a fancy chandelier almost, even though it's a plant. Yeah, it does give out tons of light level 15 I believe, so if you want to light up your interior, like a fantasy interior with this, it'll do great. And then this is my favorite part. This is the Dripleaf staircase that I made, and I made a bit of a pond here. But yeah, if you have a fantasy house, you can just install the staircase in, and it's a pretty unique staircase design, something kind of out there wacky that you can walk on it, of course, and they do go down, but that's fine, you're already up here anyways. And then I have some more glowberries over here to add some light. And then of course the spore blossom, and it's going down on the enchantment table. That makes it feel more mystical than it already is. And then for this nightstand over here, I used the big Dripleaf build hack I did over there with the vines, and it makes a pretty cool looking fantasy table. It's a pretty small interior, but I did jam pack it with a lot of the new Snapshot blocks. I think they really help add a fantasy vibe to your builds. Also, I used the calcite for the walls if you guys didn't notice. Yeah, let's go down our Dripleaf staircase and move on to the next build. Now over here, this isn't really a build hack, but it is an example of what you can do with the new blocks that we have. I pretty much made this evil looking tower with all the new Grimstone blocks and also the tuff that we have here. So starting at the bottom, I just used blackstone initially, and then we gradient up to the basalt, and then finally to the Grimstone bricks. And then in between I did some detailing with the tiles. The Grimstone tiles are the darkest out of the blocks. It's kind of like a black look. Reminds me a lot of nether brick. Like a dark variant of nether brick. But these blocks are definitely a welcome addition. And they also work really well with anvils and hoppers, and also cauldrons, which I couldn't find a use for in this build, but they are pretty useful. I used them in other builds. And then for the rest of the tower, just kind of a basic gradient. I go from the tuff to cobblestone to andesite and then stone. And then I just added some little details with just the regular Grimstone blocks. And then same for the top up here. I used some Grimstone tiles and some hoppers for some extra detailing. And the roof is just normal blocks that we've had in the game for a while now. Yeah, if you need some inspiration for how to use these blocks, this is one way you can use them. Use them in a tower and kind of a really nice gradient with the blackstone included. Because ever since 1.16 I really couldn't find a use for blackstone, because I don't know, it's just one of those blocks that's too out there. There are a few cases where they're pretty useful, but for when I'm building I mainly just use cobblestone and stone brick and all that anyways. And now that we have Grimstone, it's a very nice in-between block to transition from the blackstone to regular stone. So yeah guys, that'll do it. What are these guys doing? That'll do it for today's video, and I hope you guys do enjoy the build hacks that I have here in these different builds, and hope that you can find a use for it in your own builds. So yeah guys, if you found any of these useful, be sure to comment down below which one was your favorite, and also subscribe if you do want to see some more building content, because I'll be posting a lot more where that came from. Yeah, if you guys like building, stick around, subscribe. That's pretty much all I do here on the channel. So thank you guys so much for watching, and be kind, have a blessed day. Bye bye.